time, and that the great scholars that I've written about in my work took up in their time.
Is your radicalism shared by many Muslims in the United States? I mean, I note that I read somewhere, and forgive me if I've read it wrong, but you are from a Sufi tradition, or you embrace a Sufi tradition,
Yeah.
and in a West African Sufi tradition, and in the United States, we associate a lot of the time, at least from the outside,
Yeah.
Sufism with Quietism, with an apolitical Islam that tends to be in cahoots with dictators and
Yep.
princes around the world. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit for effect here, but how does Sufism?
But it's not a caricature by any means. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. No, I just want to understand. So, how does your Sufism interact with your Islam and your radicalism?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, so I mean, for people that have been knowing me, as an intellectual in the Muslim community, I've been trying to persuade people that Sufism isn't about, polite middle class tea parties in the suburbs, and chanting dhikr. That the real Sufis, the people like, for example, Abdul Qadir Jazairi, Emir Abdul Qadir, at age 19, he was crowned with the ceremonial turban that made him the greatest living heir of Ibn Arabi in his time. Okay. And at age 20, he was organizing armed resistance to the French occupation of Algeria. Right. Abdul Qadir Khan, a Qadri Sufi himself in the 1770s, abolished not just the international slave trade as it was being conducted in the Senegal River Valley, but he abolished the institution of slavery itself with an emancipation proclamation. He said that not a single verse of the book of God should ever be held in bondage, so that anyone capable of reciting so much as a single ayah of the Quran that was in his territories was to be immediately freed. And just to be clear, an ayah of the Quran, like Qaf, is an ayah of the Quran. And he said that the Muslim that should be protected from the indignities of enslavement is the one that says La ilaha illallah, even if she pronounces it Ra ilaha illallah. In other words, he took the legal exemption of Muslims enslaving other Muslims as a way of creating a blanket emancipation proclamation. Qadri Sufi, right? And I wrote about him in my first book, The Walking Quran. Sheikh Uthman Danfodio, Qadri Sufi, also Northern Nigeria, organized resistance to the Atlantic slave trade. El Hajj Umar Tal, Tijani Sufi, organized resistance to French occupation. Sheikh Ahmadu Bamba, creator of the Tariqa Muridiyya, spent 27 years of his life under house arrest because of his resistance to French colonial rule. So the Sufi tradition that I know is one that tethers together spirituality with social justice. And it is a Sufi tradition, and this is important, especially for this audience to understand, that it is a sober Sufi tradition. It is a Sufi tradition that is rooted in Quran and Sunnah and nothing else. The idea behind the West African Sufi tradition is and always has been that the traditional branches of the Islamic religious sciences are three, that we have and they correspond to the Hadith of Jibril, where the Prophet ﷺ was asked to describe the contents of the religion: Islam, Iman, Ihsan. In response to Islam, he named the 5 pillars. In a response to Iman, he named 6 articles of faith. It's belief in God, his books, his angels, his messengers, decree, and the hour. And in response to question, what is Ihsan? He said, it is worshiping God as though seeing him, and if you do not see him, knowing that he sees you. And the way that this has been understood in a West African context is that this is to put a 24-hour surveillance camera, not on your deeds, but on your intentions, on why you do what you do. And that this is the path of Ihsan. And so these are Sufi scholars who, why they did what they did was to try to keep needless harm and oppression from reaching the most precious thing that God created, the children of Adam.
Now, you're standing as VP of the Green Party, and I've received the occasional message. I think